Well, welcome everybody to our Experience podcast with your host, Chad Wers, your president, CEO, and Tom Hansel. And today we have an exciting guest, Jim McDonald, long time tenured in the long-term care industry. Welcome, Jim.
I'm not sure exciting is the appropriate description, but hey, I'll take it. Hey, sometimes you got to take what you're not. So
With your background and network and the people that I'm sure you have got a lot of stories and a lot of interesting back in my day, but you're still in the current day. I know that you now are have started as the vice president of channel relationships for SoftWriters for Framework, which is a great important role, great important company. But you've got a long history and legacy before that. Why don't you kick us off by telling us a little bit about your background and story?
I do a lot of relationships and a lot of dirt on those relationships, but I'll keep that aside. Been in this industry for 48 years, longer than you guys are alive probably, but 21 years actually in long-term care pharmacy as a non-pharmacist. So started in 1978, was with Medline actually before that. And I had a customer, Dave Scott, which was home care pharmacy, and ASCAP alumni Tim Beam. And then I was getting them tons of business, and they're like, "Why don't you come to work for us?" I'm like, "We worked it out," and I did. Eventually became a principal there. So that was in about 78. And then in 1988, we started what is today as Omnicare. They bought Home Care Pharmacy, and HPI Hospital Pharmacies Incorporated actually was at the time. And then, of course, ChemMed Corporation was in there. It became Sequoia Pharmacy Services because Ken Chesterman was out in Los Angeles. And then it became Omnicare. And then I left there. And they have the notoriety of being the first person that Omnicare sued for a implied non-compete, which I didn't have a non-compete, but they suggested there was one. So it cost me a lot of money and a lot of time. But I had started a medical supply company, that First Choice Medical, that was in the enteral wound care, all of that stuff when that was big back in the day. And then actually merged that with Larry Galuzzo at Skilled Care Pharmacy. So it just keeps building upon the industry here. And then end up selling that to Larry. It wasn't the right application for me in his organization. So I decided to do something else. And I went to work for a company called TriMed Supply that was out of Clearwater, actually, which was a customer of at that time. So I went and we opened up a distribution center in Cincinnati, and then had trucks and did deliveries all over to all the nursing facilities and hospitals in the area. So that was probably somewhere in the 1999, probably that ended. And then Pharmco, which was Rocky Whitehead, which was also from back in Home Care Pharmacy. He still had a company that, what was it when it was originally Rocky by himself? Can't think what that name of that was. But then we ended up, he had Pharmco, which was all the business that we sold from to Omnicare from Home Care Pharmacy. We took it all back after non-competes were up and started Pharmco. So I spent about 5 years there. And then Omnicare bought that. And then I started, we had a courier that was our courier provider that did just long-term care pharmacy. So I bought that courier company and did that for about 3-4 years. Did courier just for long-term care pharmacy in about 18 states. Had a really bad partner that had some really bad stuff going on. So we had a product called Delivery Track, which wasn't called Delivery Track then. It was QDS Logistics was the name of that company. But we took an iPack back in the day, took a barcode scanner on top of it, and actually interfaced to what today is DocuTrack. And that product became Delivery Track when I went to work for Integra in 2007. And then spent about 18 years at Integra Red Sale. And then you mentioned where I am today. So that's kind of my long story of 48 years in this business.
It's a fantastic history there, Jim. Well, I'd be remiss to not say I'm wearing my Reds shirt. This is my son's travel team when we moved to DC from Cincinnati. And it was sort of it felt like good karma that they were called the Reds, even though they're the Alexandria Reds. But I wore it because you're a fine Cincinnatian, longtime Cincinnatian.
Long time, just short of 50 years, probably.
Yeah. And, you can hear it in some of that history with Skilled Care and Farmco and Rocky and Larry. And obviously Dave Scott and Tim Bean, who incidentally, I went to Xavier pre-farm alongside Tracy Bean, who's Tim's daughter.
Oh, wow.
So that's how old I am, I guess, too.
It's a very small industry.
It is.
Everybody knows everybody. And that goes to Tom's comment earlier. The relationships you have in this business are long lasting and forever.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I was unaware of the Tim Bean Omnicare thing when I was at Xavier, but let's talk. I wanted to bring that up though, because we've spent a long time and a number of podcasts talking about people that had been there all the way back toward the beginning of ASCP in the early 70s, late 60s. But can we talk about, wasn't home care the first Omnicare? Wasn't that the stepping off point?
Yes, it was. Yeah. Yeah. Home care, we bought David Wren's pharmacy, DNR pharmacy down in Louisville, or Lexington maybe. And then
Bieber.
Herb Langsom's pharmacy. And then, and talk about early ASCAP, Herb Langsom. And then a couple out in California. There's probably 6 pharmacies we had at that point. Bieber Pharmacy in Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah.
And then a bunch obviously after that but yeah, those were the first, that's where the stepping off point for Omnicare. Yeah.
Now, how would you characterize that? As like, because I'm always thinking about, where did this all sort of originate? Could you argue that long-term care pharmacy got started in the Cincinnati area, or do you think it was happening in a variety of places all at once and then sort of consolidated as a result?
I think a lot of it did start in Cincinnati. Dave Scott, pharmacist, he had a nursing home that he had a pharmacy in the basement of in Fairfield, Ohio. And the owners of the nursing facility, I think, probably needed the space in the building. And they're like, you need to move out. And I think also Dave worked for Lowmark Drugs, which was back in there at the time. And Larry, the owner of that, I can't think of his name, but he was also involved in that business with Dave, and he didn't want to be in it. He had retail stores and he was like, I don't want to do this. So Dave took the business and started, and then became home care. So I think, to a large degree, it did probably start in Cincinnati.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I know that was Omnicare's first purchase was home care. And I think they made that purchase based on the Medicaid program. I guess Kentucky Medicaid reimbursement was top of the nation. And
exactly.
So when they want to get into long-term care, that obviously wouldn't make those decisions today, but
yeah, where you go. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Go follow the money. Yeah.
So first person sued by Omnicare, but not the last. Certainly, but I always say that either we've all worked for Omnicare or we're going to work for Omnicare someday. But
True.
What Omni, out of all their faults and all the things that certainly they get negative or had gotten negative press about, one thing that they really, really did, I think, extremely well is they really ran operations for servicing long-term care pharmacies, and they weren't afraid to take that cutting-edge technology and get into multi-dose and do a lot of things.
Right.
And they streamline their operations, and that's kind of where I learned cut my teeth on efficiency operations. But to do delivery track at the time that you were doing it is certainly cutting edge and innovative. Tell me how that came about when you were running that logistic company.
It was funny because today you look at your cell phone and it's a cell phone. This was an iPac, which I found one the other day in some of my storage stuff, and it had a simple barcode scanner you stuck in the top, and we were just doing proof of delivery that way on our own. And then I think it was Kevin Welch who owned Integra at the time. He's like, wait a minute, what are you doing with that? How are you doing that? And I said, well, it's pretty rudimentary, but this is what we're doing. He's like, why don't you, to build an interface, we'll build an interface and put that into DocuTrack. That way because DocuTrack really changed the face of long-term care pharmacy when they did that 20 some years ago. it was all faxes. At Home Care Pharmacy, we had a bank of 8 fax machines, and all we did was have paper flying at us. So DocTrack changed that. If you could take that manifest and make it paperless too, and attach it to the prescription and that in DocTrack, it was pretty good. So we did that, built the interface, and I think at a conference, Integra conference, Kevin's like, "You need to build a better product." And I said, "I can't. I got a really bad partner, and I can't do it." And he's like, "Well, then we'll build it better, and you just come to work for us." So
that's amazing.
That's kind of where that went.
That's awesome. It's that good entrepreneurial Cincinnati spirit that I see in Jim.
Yeah, there you go. I've always, for some reason, I've always owned or had some portion of a business. Just the way my dad was, I think.
Awesome. So, that's really great.
Yeah. And we spend a lot of time trying to encourage up and coming pharmacists that are maybe in their 20s or 30s that this is an industry worth investing in. This is a population worth investing in, and to have that entrepreneur spirit. So I think Chad and I really, really appreciate that. When I think about Integra, though, from my personal experience and just reputation across the nation, I would say Integra was well known as probably the best customer service amongst any vendor in the entire nation. Yeah. That can't have happened, could not have happened by accident.
No, Kevin was a great guy, is a great guy, and really loved what he did for business. So he made the investments in it, and he had the right people. Probably one of my best memories of DocuTrack was installing it at Consonas Pharmacy. And Phil Fogg followed us out of the building and said, "This is the absolute best software implementation we've ever had." And that was a big deal.
That's big. Yeah,
that was big.
That's really big.
For Phil Fogg, that's a big deal. Yeah. And that's really what we made our mark with is, it was customer service, the right people implementing the product that understood the business. If you don't understand long-term care pharma, it's hard to work in it and to be a supplier to it. And a lot of people don't. It's a pretty intricate business and sounds pretty simple, but it's not necessarily that simple to me anyway. But we made our mark that way by just having quality implementation, quality support, and quality product. Yeah, it's pretty fun to do that. Yeah.
Let me take an aside again, referencing my shirt. You had told me a story once that you hung around with. I think you told me you hung around with like Pete Rose and the Big Red Machine back in the day.
Yeah, I grew up with Kim Nuxall, who was Joe Nuxall, right. Obviously the youngest left-hander still probably in Major League Baseball, and the Reds radio announcer for 40 years, maybe, I don't know. But I went to spring training and all those things. Yeah, Pete Rose and Johnny Bench and some guys came to my wedding, just happened to be that way because of that relationship. So, Cincinnati's, I'm not a baseball fan necessarily because it was a slow, boring game. I'm a Bengals fan and maybe a Bucks fan today, but that's all right when they win. But so we have, I had neighbors. I lived in Westchester, and Ken Griffey was, his dad was one of my neighbors, next door neighbor. So it was nice to be involved in the sports industry in Cincinnati. It was fun. Yeah.
That's super cool. Kim Nuxall is Joe's son, and he's very active in Cincinnati and Hamilton. So
he has the Miracle League. Yeah.
Pretty neat.
Yeah, which has got at least two baseball diamonds built for handicapped children to play baseball in wheelchairs and in all kinds of situations. And it really makes a wonderful space for him. Yeah. He's done a great job with it. So, yeah.
Awesome. I still have in my office a head first sliding Pete Rose picture that generally gets some questions.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Of course. But I mean, West Side Cincinnati. And so.
Yeah, exactly.
Definitely exuded hustle and hard work. And, like I said, your career kind of embodies that. Hustle, hard work, finding a way.
Yeah, and I guess not quitting or not giving up. Anytime, sometimes in those situations, you get bad news in your job and you're unemployed the next day. Yeah. And you just gotta, what they say, one door closes, another opens. And I always say, if another one doesn't open a window. figure out a way in. So I recently had just opened that window. So,
I mean, I think as Tom mentioned, we want the young people in this industry to be aggressive and not be afraid of risk. And, that generally occurs. If you're hardworking and you have a nose for the ball, you're going to find your way in this industry. And like any industry, it's going to continue to evolve and improve, and there's going to be innovation, and you can be as much a part of that as you want if you're willing to invest in it, learn it, and take some risks. For sure.
And that's a big piece. I do believe that's maybe a drawback to some younger folks, but this industry, the age population is going to continue. We're going to need people that continue to do what you gentlemen have done in time, and take care of people like myself when I get to that point. Don't laugh too hard, Tom.
Well, I mean, I think people don't recognize that when you look back at your career, however long it is, we start telling stories of. I just did it the other day with some students from St. John's University. I said I started as a 14-year-old in a community pharmacy. We were typing labels. And if we made a mistake typing it on a typewriter, we had to start over. Like to think about where it is today from where it was then.
One finger typing. Yeah. I knew pharmacists at retail, and they'd typewriter with one finger type thing.
And to think that DocuTrack is a 20-plus-year-old technology, the next things are coming. AI might be a stimulus for some next things coming, and you got to be paying attention. And got to roll with what's going on.
And I don't think AI today will be what is AI tomorrow. It's going to change dramatically and keep going every day, I do believe. So yeah.
So Jim, where do you think that came from? Johnny Bench, or watching them grow up, or to have that kind of not just energy, but be able to take the risk and continue going from home care to QDS logistics to Integra to Frank. I mean, you've really kind of ran the gamut of experience and not afraid to, to take that next step. Where do you think that intrinsically comes from for you?
Probably came from my dad. Probably he was worked for a company called Belknap Hardware in Louisville, Kentucky, which nobody knows them today, but they were like one of the major hardware suppliers in the country. I think he was there for 35 years, and one day they called him and said, "Hey, Mac, what you sold today will deliver, but the company filed bankruptcy today." He was like, "Oh, okay." Well, his major competition, I think, was George Warren Hardware. They called him and said, "Hey, you know what? You need to come to work for us. You don't have to do anything, but we just want your name." My dad was like, "No, I'll work for you, but you're not just paying me to do nothing." So that's the kind of guy he was, and I think I probably carried that. My sister's the same way. My brothers are whole family's the same way. We just all keep moving, and not much gets in the way.
Well, I mean, I might add to that your personality and who you are as a person, I think, play a large role in your success. I can remember always. I mean, you were at Skilled Care for a minute. Always professional, always fun to talk to, always willing to invest in the conversation that you were having. Like, those things resonate. I mean, that's part of the way we feel like ASCP is a family. Is people come to the meetings primarily to network and see their friends and see people across the industry. And it's because of relationships that they make with people like you that make them keep coming back. So I think, don't sleep on the fact that, I think you're just a really good person. I remember walking through, whether it was an Integra meeting, you're always there. Your wife was always there. You're always so cordial. Yeah. Your wife would jump in and talk. And I didn't even know her the first time that happened, but felt like I got to know her every time I ran into you guys at a meeting. And those things are endearing and enduring for us.
It's funny because she worked at Rite Aid when Dave Scott was there, so she knew him, and she was the event planner for Integra for about 15 years. So that's why you always saw her at the conference, and why the conferences were so good. But
that's awesome.
So Jim, I asked this question a lot. If you were going to be able to reset your career, and this is kind of day one now of your career, so you've got a long many decades ahead of you, but we're in the current environment, we're in the current industry, current situation. What would you focus on for the next 10 years? If you were to advise someone that was up and coming, had a lot of drive, wanted to be an entrepreneur, kind of where do you think that you would direct them?
I have a niece that's kind of in that frame right now, and I told her to be a medical supply or a pharmaceutical rep to get into this industry. Because that's where I know a lot of people get into it. I like the industry. I think it's phenomenal. Whether it's just long-term care pharmacy for me right now, but medical supplies before that. I think it was 5 years at Medline, and I would park on Pill Hill in Cincinnati, what we called it then, and you could walk the 15 hospitals and never get back in your car. To me, that's one way to get into this industry, is to do something like that. And if you're young enough and you're looking, I probably won't spend 10 more years in it, but I'm not ready to hang it up yet. I don't know what I would do if I did hang it up. But I think probably look for a way that gets you into this industry through some sales role if you're in sales. And I think if you're a pharmacist, you want to get into this industry, look for some of the quality pharmacies and try to get a job there. I think there's some great companies in this industry. Consolidation over the years has changed a lot of things, but I thought it's a great place to be. I don't know if I answered your question or not, but it's kind of what I think. Yeah.
No, certainly. There's obviously, like Chad mentioned, AI and a lot of different things going on. And, if you were very adventurous and, innovative, you wanted the technology side, certainly jumping into that area. But just curious to see kind of where, knowing what you know now, kind of, what's the job you would take, or would you try to open the next home care, or, kind of what would you do?
Yeah, it is funny. I had interviews with 5 different AI companies during my point where I am today. Wasn't a fit for me. I'm probably not as technical as I needed to be today. Long term, it didn't seem to be a good fit. I think it's an excellent spot if you're technology oriented. AI is probably a good place to be. I think it'll settle over the years to become more valuable, and I think but it's a great place to be. If I was the right age, I'd probably go there. If I was your age, I'd probably go there.
Well, we're definitely thrilled that you're still here and in it, and have started a new role. The next few generations of people in long-term care need people like you, still guiding, still there, still directing in some ways, and trying to hold us to that entrepreneurial spirit and that innovation that this industry desperately needs. So thank you for that.
I think a big part of what I do is mentoring people. I did that in my last role, and I'm doing that already today on this one. So just try to help bring people along and make successful people out of them when They might not be yet. So yeah, worth the investment on my part.
So what's the near future hold? I know that we won't see you probably at your other conference we used to see you at, but you'll still be going to some conferences this year. But what are you most excited about?
Reconnecting with the people I haven't seen for a while. Since October, I've been kind of not out in the field, and going to be heading back out there and conference next week, and I'll be reconnecting with a lot of friends and family, and I call them family because there's a lot of people in this business that are pretty much like family, like you gentlemen as well. So that's I look forward to that and getting back out into the customer base. Yeah. I like working with the people. Yeah.
Well, we'll see you at one of those meetings. We'll have a drink and toast the resurgence of the Bengals defense after this draft.
Everybody's going to win the Super Bowl in March.
And just keep Joe Burrow off the ground.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being with us, Jim. This has been great.
No, thanks for the invite. Yeah, appreciate it.
Tom, you want to have any last words? Take us out.
No, just, Jim, you've been a mentor of ours and for many years. We appreciate the relationship, and so glad to hear that you're staying in the industry for the foreseeable future. So just looking forward to continuing spending some time with you and all fighting in the same direction for long-term care farms.
Absolutely the right direction. Absolutely. Thanks for the time.
Thanks.
Fantastic. Well, join us next time on Rxperience.